Welcome again to Educator.com, or the disadvantages and advantages of internet research, or just internet research and library research. This lesson, I'm going to tell you about what the internet can do for you and what the library can do for you. I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of both. Hint, you still need to go to libraries. We're not quite there yet. So, let's start with the internet, since this is Educator.com and you are watching this on the internet, and you, like me, don't always want to be at the library. You'd rather do things really fast at home. Well, let's talk about what the internet has done well. First off, it really has helped us get information faster. I mean, the internet revolution is pretty much like the Gutenberg revolution back in the 1500s. It's that big of a deal. It has really helped us just get so much information, and in the process, it has also made the world smaller. What do you think I mean by that? What do I mean by making the world smaller? It's a figure of speech. I don't mean the planet went like this and then is like this. But I do mean this. When I was, years ago, before the internet was popular, I used to have to write hand letters to my cousin in the Philippines. Now, I just send emails to my cousin in the Philippines. Kind of miss sending hand letters, though. That was kind of fun. But you kind of get the idea. My cousin in the Philippines is just really easy for me to get in contact with now. There's no need to send letters. There's no need to send postage stamps. I don't even remember what a post office is anymore. Also, it has made software distribution faster. Now, this might be bad news if you're running a video game or software company, but that's another great thing about the internet. It's just the software just is always there and it's right at your fingertips. Now, here's what the internet has not done well, or what I call perils of the internet. It enhances our ADHD. If you think I'm kidding about this, I'm not. I'm not actually exaggerating at all. ADHD correlates with a lot of visual stimuli, and the internet is just kind of full of that. It's so hard to concentrate sometimes. And as you're just so used to, having 5 browser windows open, typing up a paper, and listening to music all at the same time, it tends to make things difficult to concentrate when you need to concentrate. Also, it keeps us connected with other people. But I put that in quotation marks. Did you know that you can only be in a steady, real friendship with about 150 people maximum at any given period of time? How many people are on your Facebook friends list? Probably more than 150 people, which means probably most of those people aren't people you're really in a close relationship and friendship with, but you just kind of think they are. I mean, really, there comes a point where Facebook friends just kind of become a glorified address book. Also, this is both good and bad. It removes a lot of privacy. Think about your worst mistake. Now, your worst mistake is not on the internet, or at least I hope it isn't, but it could be, and it could be on the internet. We haven't quite figured out netiquette as well as we'd like to about what is acceptable to talk about on Facebook or a blog or Google Plus or Twitter yet. And we're learning as a culture, as everybody, we're trying to figure that out, how we're actually going to be dealing with this privacy issue that's on the internet. And also, there's one other big problem with the internet, and that is actually too much information. This is going to be something a little counterintuitive. Let's say that you were given, an option to eat meal number 1, meal number 2, meal number 3. And you were told just kind of what they are. You can imagine what this. Maybe this is a turkey sandwich, maybe this is a hamburger, and maybe this is a nice bowl of soup. If I gave you 3 options, you'd be able to choose very quickly. But if I gave you 12 options, it would not only take you forever to choose, but you might not choose at all. You might actually walk out of the restaurant. And it's called the paradox of choice. When we have too many options, it makes us harder to choose, as opposed to making things easier, which is what choices are supposed to be all about. And that's kind of one of the problems with the internet, especially when you do internet research and you want to narrow things down to a topic. You just have too much to choose from, too much to think about. Please be aware of this. It's one common peril of the internet. Now we're going to get into more specifics now. Here is one of the great advantages of the internet. First off, it's free. I put that in quotation marks because somebody's paying for your computer and your internet connection somehow. but for the most part, it is free. The internet operates on what's called a gift economy. Now, gift economy, instead of like manufacturing industry or stuff like that, actually means that the companies that give away the most information are going to be the ones that are the most successful. This is why Google is really, really, really successful. It gave information away. It didn't try to hold it or control distribution. So, information is usually free on the internet. Another great advantage of the internet is that you can quickly fact-check things, and it will correct common misconceptions. Wikipedia has an entire section called Common Misconceptions. One of them being that Christopher Columbus was afraid to go to the New World because the world was flat. That is a common misconception. Look up the real answer on wikipedia.com. Now, so it's just really simple. The way it works is that if one person writes something wrong on a Tuesday, 5 people will correct him on Wednesday. A common website that will correct bad information is Snopes.com. That's specifically to dispel internet rumors. If you don't believe me, I want you to open up a blog. I want you to go to a web message board. I want you to go to Reddit or any comment site, and I want you to write something that you know is wrong, like Abraham Lincoln was president in 1960. And you will be corrected very, very quickly. So that's one of the advantages of internet research. Another advantage of internet research is that there are a lot of experts out there. Believe it or not, there are a lot of PhDs who don't have regular jobs, but they do have websites. And as such, they become experts and just kind of, like Google, give information away. And this can be found on blogs, podcasts, websites like About.com, eZine.com, all kinds of places where you can find something that an expert has written and he is willing to share for you for free. I want to know something about Thomas Jefferson. Well, I'm just going to go to this website called thejeffersonhour.com. Happens to be run by a nice gentleman up in, I think, North Dakota. And yeah, he has made a career out of studying Thomas Jefferson. This guy knows everything there is to know about Thomas Jefferson, and he is definitely an expert. This is one of the great advantages of internet research. Also, internet research is great for getting information, especially news, across the pond. So, what's the news in London, Seoul, Tokyo, or Buenos Aires? Well, if before the internet, if I wanted to know that, I'd probably have to drive to a major city like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz. I'm just thinking about California cities. Sorry, you can think of other major cities. And I'd have to go to a specialty newsstand, and I'd have to get a newspaper sent across the pond, and by that I mean across the ocean, and I'd have to be looking at last week's news from London, Seoul, Tokyo, or Buenos Aires. Now, if I want to get information from Seoul, I just go to chosun.com, and I can get all kinds of information about what's going on in Seoul in English. Same thing with any news for Tokyo or Buenos Aires. Trust me, you will be able to find news information that quickly. And one of the other great advantages of internet research is free, but also just old classic literature. Now, because of copyright laws, I'm still not able to get a lot of recent books on the internet for free. However, Gutenberg.org has a volunteer army of people who are just typing up, transcripting anything written pretty much before 1920, which is before copyright laws were controlling distribution. And most of these authors aren't collecting royalties on their work, so, I guess a great way to say it is that the dead don't complain. And we have all their work available, and they're living on Gutenberg.org for you. You can find anything there. If you want to read the original Gulliver's Travels, you can find it here. If you want to read Alice in Wonderland, you can find it here. If you want to read Plato's Republic, you can find it here. Anything published before 1920, you will find for free online. Now, there is some flies in the old ointment, some disadvantages. And that is, one of them, is that it starts as many rumors as it stops. Did you know that cell phones can cause gas station explosions? And did you know that somebody found a chicken head in a McNugget? And did you know that I will give you a free laptop if you just take this survey and give me all your personal information? These are either rumors, one of them is a scam. This is found all over on the internet too, which is why it's important that we have websites like Snopes.com to check these. But it's kind of a weird cycle. You know, the internet helps us fact check lies that were produced on the internet in the first place. Can you kind of see the problem there? Maybe if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't have these lies and rumors flying around so quickly. But thankfully, we do have quick fact checking on the internet too. But be careful what sources you trust. Another big problem is teaser information. Remember when I talked about About.com, eZine.com, and blogs? Well, here's one thing that is not exactly a gift economy mentality. If somebody's writing a blog, they might give you just a little bit of information to get you excited so that they'll buy your product. Do you want to know how to run a business, how to have better relationships, how to fix your car, how to install a computer, where to find the best jobs? Well, I'll give you 2 paragraphs, but if you want the real information, buy my book. That's teaser information right there. So be careful about teaser information. And that just means that an article or a blog is giving you a deliberately short amount of information so that you'll want to purchase a book or sign up for a webinar or go to an event. It's teaser information just to get you interested. Also, quality checking. Now, at the risk of contradicting myself, I did say that fact checking occurs very quickly on the internet, but sometimes it doesn't always occur fast enough. And here's kind of a quick sample. We still need to know, does it happen, and who does the quality checking, and is it credible? So let's say I have 2 websites that are dedicated to giving me tips on how to be healthy, nutrition and health and medicine and all that kind of stuff. Who should I trust? Should I trust more the CDC.gov, which is called the Center of Disease Control, which is a government agency run by scientists and doctors, or www.familyhomehealthtips.net, which is run by I don't even know who? Who should I trust? Well, I think that I should trust this. And I trust this because I know it's a government agency, and well, not all government agencies are good, but this one is good, and I know it's run by scientists and doctors and people with PhDs after their last name, experts in the field. Family Home Health Tips, I have no idea who runs that site, and I don't know if I trust that information because it could just be folk remedies. You know, maybe somebody's actually, saying, hey, take this pill, even though it's actually rat poison. I mean, who knows? So, another big disadvantage of the internet is that popularity does not mean quality. I might find a website that is getting 3,000 hits a day. I wish I had a website that was getting that many hits a day. I know that's a popular website, but does that mean it is a good website? I can get somebody's attention by presenting information in a deliberately exaggerated, inflammatory, or combative way. This happens all the time with political blogs and political websites and even news agencies. Have you ever heard somebody say something like this? Joe LaGrange should not be president because he said he wants to tear up the Constitution, had a marital affair in high school, and bribed his way through his bar exam. Think carefully about that statement. It sounds very inflammatory, it sounds very combative. And you, as a smart student, are going to look at one of these statements. He had a marital affair in high school. You, as a smart person, can this even possibly be true? Can you get married when you're in high school? No, this is exaggerated, inflammatory, and combative information, and I bet if you put that on a website and you replace Joe LaGrange with another popular politician, a lot of people will be paying attention to your website. But that does not mean your website is good. Final disadvantage of the internet is this thing called the Facebook factor. And I was about to tell this whole story about the Facebook factor, but you see what happened is that my friend got in a new relationship on Facebook, and I had to look at that. Also, there was this Farmville game that I was playing, and then there was somebody posted this really funny video with a little baby that was singing with a big husky dog, and I just didn't get this part done. See the problem here? Facebook factor. Internet will distract you. Great way to do this is to simply, when you know you need to do something, just turn the internet off. Just unplug it from the wall. Just turn off your wireless internet. Don't make it easy for yourself to get distracted. It's a very, very easy thing to do to stop being distracted, and that's just to make the internet unavailable when you know it shouldn't be. So, those were the advantages and disadvantages of the internet. We're going to summarize those again at the end, but now we're going to move on to why we still go to libraries. So, libraries are basically going to still give us information that the internet can't. And libraries are 100% free too. I mean, they're paid by taxes, but they're kind of meant to be free for specific information. Here's one thing that you will never find on the internet. Well, almost never. And that's what we call academic articles and academic journals. What do I mean by an academic journal? Well, an academic journal is kind of like a magazine, except that it's dedicated to one very narrow field of study. It's not like Time magazine or National Geographic or Cosmopolitan. It's dedicated to philosophy or medicine or law or English literature or Shakespeare. They're dedicated to one very narrow field of study. And that's very important. They're always written by professors writing to other professors. Now, I want you to think about quality checking. Do you trust a professor in a subject? Is he an expert in the field? If he writes something to another professor, do you think that's going to be very good or very bad? It's going to be very, very good. And that's because these other professors check the articles before they are included in these publications. I'm not kidding. It's very, very hard to get published in an academic journal. You not only have to be already a professor and an expert in your field, but your peers have to also think that this paper is really good and should be shared with the world. Academic journals are usually not available online. If you happen to know somebody who teaches at a college, they will sometimes post their work on websites and blogs, but that's the exception. Normally, you have to find these in a library, specifically a university library, to get an academic journal. They're usually published monthly or quarterly, more commonly quarterly. Not every month, maybe every other month, but usually not monthly. And they are organized by volume and number. At the end of all numbers, they are compiled into a single book. This is one way that you'll recognize an academic article. And I'm going to show you some examples real quick. They usually will say something like volume, like 9, number 4. The volume number is how many years. I know that this particular journal is in its 9th year of publication. Number 4 is the 4th one published this year. It's really easy to remember. You'll almost always see that in academic articles. Here's what an academic article looks like. An academic journal. This is Philosophia Christi. This is an academic journal that's dedicated to the subject of philosophy. You can't see it very well right here, but it says volume 10, number 2. Volume 10, number 2, published in 2008. So, how old is this journal? Who's in it? And stuff like that. And you notice not very pizzazzy, not a lot of pictures on it. Well, that's because it's an academic journal. It's not meant to be on a newsstand. It's meant to be in a university library. Here's another academic journal. What do you think this one is about? Hey, look, it tells you. It's an academic journal about film and television. Yeah, you can have academic journals about just about everything. And this one is volume number 30, number 1. So it's the first publication of its 30th year. And if you notice, oh, hey, look, it even says it right there, 30 years. This is another academic journal. This one's a little bit prettier than the last one, but it's still an academic journal. Why? Because it says a volume number, and a number of publications. And I know that these people, these editors, are probably PhDs and experts in their fields. Now, academic journals aren't the only thing that you can pick up at a library. You can still use complete popular magazines. Now, why do you suppose I say complete popular magazines? Well, do you remember that teaser information comment that I mentioned about the internet? Well, if you go to a website that's dedicated to a magazine, they do have most of their articles available online, but they still reserve quite a few that they put only in publication, and print publication rather. Now, a popular magazine is written to a general audience, not just scholars in a field. This means it probably is a little bit more easier for students to understand. Before you really get into details of a subject that's your major, these academic journals can feel really, really up high and kind of heady, but these popular magazines are so much easier to understand. Popular magazines are usually published monthly, and that's good because, it's more business for them and, more education for us. They do not have a peer review process in popular magazines, but they do have a quality checking. They are vigorously fact-checked, and they do have an editing process so that you know that it's not just internet rumors printed on shiny paper. You can find these in bookstores, newsstands, and in addition to libraries. So if you don't feel like going to the library, just go to your bookstore, get yourself a cup of coffee, and then look at all the popular magazines. No academic journals, but you'll find maybe a magazine you haven't heard of before. Magazines are almost never compiled into volumes at the end of a year. So there's really not a lot of reason to keep records of, this year's copies of Men's Health. That's just kind of pointless. It's a periodical. It's meant to be read, latest news, latest information, and then thrown away, and then you get the next one. People don't keep records of years and years and years of popular magazines. That's just kind of silly. Here's an example of a popular magazine that's all about philosophy. So, this is just called Philosophy Now. You notice that this is a little bit brighter, this is a little bit happier. Maybe it's something you'd see in a newsstand or a bookstore that just wants to grab your attention so you pick it up and wonder who that guy with a stone face is. Here again is another popular magazine, and it's the most popular magazine. It's like the definition of a popular magazine. It's just called Entertainment Weekly. And so here we go. We got a nice picture of Robert Downey Jr., and we're talking about the top 25 entertainers of the year. So if I don't feel like reading a heavy academic article about the film industry, I'll just go to here and get this nice magazine, and that'll give me quicker information. Books. You can find complete books on any subject in a library. What is Google Books? Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever used it? Well, Google Books is trying to make copies of all the books in the world pretty much and just put them on PDF files so that we can read them. We don't have everything yet. We don't even have most things. I tried to find a book on Google Books that's 30 years old, and I still didn't have a complete copy of it. So Google Books isn't there yet. So you still have to go to the library and find complete books on a subject until Google Books takes off. However, you might have to use interlibrary loan. In fact, for preparations for this entire course, I've had to use interlibrary loan. Now, what do I mean by that? It means if I go to a library and I go into the card catalog on the internet and I see, the book I need and the book I want, the book that looks interesting, isn't at this library, but it is at the library in Agora Hills. So I ask the librarian and say, hey, can you get this delivered here for me? And then I'll borrow it and then return it to you, and then you return it to the library in Agora Hills? That's an example of interlibrary loan. Now, that's not going to be nearly as fast as the internet, but it does mean that at libraries you still have access to pretty much any book you want as long as another library in the area has access to it. Another great thing about libraries, and especially academic university libraries, are what we call specialty encyclopedias. Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia are general encyclopedias. They're not encyclopedias that are dedicated to one subject. It will be very hard for you to find the information of a specialty encyclopedia and a general encyclopedia and even harder to find it on the internet. Pick a subject, pick an academic subject, and you'll find a specialty encyclopedia about it. That means volume after volume after volume, just on one subject, like the Encyclopedia of Bioethics, the Cambridge History of English and American Literature, the Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Corpus Juris Secundum. What? Well, that's a law encyclopedia. So this will help you understand very tough subjects. For instance, if I'm doing some history of if my research paper happens to be a contemporary political issue, and I read in a popular magazine that a particular political figure referenced a court case that I've never heard of, like Wisconsin versus Yoder in 1977, well, maybe if I go to a specialty encyclopedia, they'll be able to tell me what that is. So that's an example of the use of specialty encyclopedias. Sometimes the popular information in the magazines will reference something you've never heard of, and then you need to go to a specialty encyclopedia to find it. More examples of that to follow. So, to wrap up, use the internet because it's fast. It has a lot of experts, and you can find book titles, and you can get the most recent facts and news from anywhere in the world. When using the internet, beware of lies, half-truths, and exaggerations, like marital affairs in high school. And watch out for that lack of quality assurance. Also, make sure it's fact-checked by the right people. Anybody can say you're wrong, but it takes a really smart person to actually correct someone correctly. And finally, the Facebook factor. Watch out for your distractions. Stay focused. Unplug the internet when you need to. Finally, we have libraries. Now, what are libraries good for? Well, once you know what books you want from the internet, you can find them in a library. And if they're not at the library you go to first, you can ask about an interlibrary loan. You can find all the magazines you need to. You can make copies of these magazines and you can read them. Specialty encyclopedias to help you understand the hard stuff. And lastly, academic articles for when you're ready, usually when you're getting ready to go to college. Check those out. One thing you need to be sure of when you're checking out libraries is to plan ahead. You might not find the book, the article, or even the reference encyclopedia you want. So, usually if you have an assignment that you need to get finished in 3 weeks, start researching at the library by the end of this week, because you might have to wait a week to get the information you need to do your paper correctly. Always plan ahead when it comes to libraries. Now, your very next assignment at the end of the next lesson is actually to write what's called a research paper. Now, that sounds very stressful, but I'm here to assure you that your very first research paper is going to be simple. All that I'm really looking for, my goal, is to just get you used to actually going to libraries, surfing the internet, and then compiling all that into an essay of your choosing. What do you got to do? Well, you pick a topic. How about your favorite celebrity? How about your favorite music group? Got a hobby or sport you're concerned about? How about a career? How about an interesting historical figure or an event? You read anything recently that you like? Do you know what major you want to do in college? Do you know where you want to go? This might be a good chance to start researching and maybe getting a better idea of what you want to do when you go to college. Hey, take the opportunity. I'm here to help you, and you want to go to college. Do some research. So, once you've picked that topic, what you need to do is you need to find a website about that topic. And then, yes, somehow you got to get to the library and you have to get 2 books and you have to get 2 articles. Now, when it comes to those articles, I will accept 2 internet articles as long as they are also published in a popular magazine or an academic journal. But I don't think it's a good idea for you to be trusting blogs or to be trusting eZine right now. So, find a website. It can be any website related to your topic. Find 2 books and find 2 articles. Find those magazines. And then next week, we're going to actually be talking about taking all this information, funneling it into a thesis, and then eventually writing an essay. Until then, thanks for using educator.com.